Hey everybody, if you saw that big pencil in the thumbnail, then you are right. Today is another writing video, and in fact, you probably saw the title. So this video is all about teaching first and second grade students how to write a paragraph. Now, I generally like to do this in 4 easy steps, so I'm gonna break it down for you and show you exactly how I do each step with my kids. If you've watched my videos before, then welcome back, and if not, my name is Susan Jones. I'm a former first grade and K-2 literacy teacher who now spends a lot of time making videos like this, teaching K1 and 2 teachers how to do all sorts of fun things in their classroom, and really I like to give ideas that you can take and use right away. I upload a brand new video every Thursday and Sunday morning here on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, click like on this video, and let's get started with those tips. Alright, so if you've been here before, you will probably know that I love using Writing Workshop. Now, I love using the Writing Workshop model to teach students how to write. And that, again, does not mean I use any certain person's writing workshop. I have in the past, but generally I like to follow just the structure of I teach you how to do something, we kind of do it together, and then you go off and independently write while I meet with small groups of students. I love how the Writing Workshop model promotes student choice and it allows students to work at their own pace, but unfortunately it has this perceived notion that there's a large lack of structure, or that students aren't learning how to do some simple things like write a proper sentence or a proper paragraph. And at least for my own classroom, speaking only on my own behalf, that is just simply not true. So I wanted to go ahead and take this time to make a video sharing exactly how I teach my students to write a paragraph. Step number 1 when learning any new concept is going to be to explicitly explain what a paragraph is. Thankfully, whether your students know it or not, they see and experience paragraphs all the time. So we just want to take this moment to briefly introduce and explain exactly what they are so students are ready to start writing their own. I like to use an anchor chart like this one right here, where I just explain that a paragraph is a group of sentences all about one main topic. I let students know that writers use paragraphs to organize their writing and make it easier to understand for the reader. I also make sure I explain to students that we write paragraphs in all 3 genres of writing: informative, narrative, and opinion. Now, while each of those paragraph types might be structured slightly differently, they are set up in the same general way. And as you can see, that anchor chart had some color coding, the green, yellow, and red. And that is when I explain to students that paragraphs usually have 3 main parts. And I like to use the stoplight model, or rather it's like the reverse stoplight model that looks like this. So here I go ahead and explain the parts of a paragraph, and we have go, slow, and stop. Basically, go is our topic sentence where we are getting the paragraph started off and we're explaining what this little paragraph of words and writing is going to be about. Slow is when we slow it down and explain a little bit more about our topic sentence. And then stop, of course, is at the end. We are all done, we are wrapping up this paragraph, and we are ready to talk about a new topic. That green, yellow, and red color coding is great for students just to have a visual cue when they are going ahead and identifying different parts of a paragraph, and when they're thinking about writing their own paragraphs going forward. Now, let me just quickly stop to mention that, of course, your students aren't going to be writing paragraphs unless they can write really good, strong sentences first. So if you need help teaching your students how to write sentences, I made a whole video on that right here. Okay, step 2 in paragraph writing is for students to go ahead and identify the different parts of a paragraph. After they've learned what the different parts of a paragraph are, I want to see if they're able to actually go in and dissect a paragraph that another author wrote and see if they can understand and pick apart why the author chose to set up their paragraph in that way. By having students go in and see if they can identify the topic, the details, and the ending of different paragraphs, not only are they able to see different examples of each sentence that they might be inspired to use in their own writing, but they can also understand the purpose of each of those types of sentences to kind of wrap up a nice paragraph. Now, generally before I have students go into a paragraph, I like to take this time to introduce different types of introduction sentences and different types of closing sentences so students know what to look for. There are so many different ways you can introduce this. When I am doing this with my first and second grade students, I like to use anchor charts like these. I like to explain to students that they can use a question, a statement, or an exclamatory remark to go ahead and kick off and close their paragraphs. And in these anchor charts, I went ahead and gave some examples. So you can see I have, do you know what a savanna is? And then with the matching closing sentence, I say, did you learn anything new about the savanna after reading this? I like to match them up so they have some different ideas. Also within these two anchor charts, you will see some examples of opinion types of topic sentences and also some nonfiction or informative types of topic and closing sentences. I find that when I introduce students to different types of topic and closing sentences first, they're better able to kind of pick out those sentences within an already written paragraph. Now you want to go ahead and give students some paragraphs to dissect on their own. Now in my paragraph writing unit, I have a bunch. They look like this. And students will simply go ahead and take a different color crayon for the topic, details, and closing sentences. And of course, I usually have them use green, yellow, and red if possible. And they will have to identify which sentence is which. So here's an informational paragraph about hummingbirds. And students would go ahead and either underline or highlight the topic sentence, the details, and the closing, and then they would draw a picture to match. I made a bunch of different paragraphs so students could see opinion paragraphs as well as narrative ones, and they can still identify that topic, the closing, and all the details in the middle. Now, of course, you do not need to purchase my paragraph writing unit to do this activity. Those are just a very clear example, so I wanted to show you, but you can just photocopy some examples from a mentor text of different paragraphs and give students some markers and have them do this on their own. Just like I did with my paragraphs though, you do want to make sure you expose students to informative, opinion, and narrative paragraphs. While they all have the same structure of topic, details, and a closing, which is important for them to notice, they may sound a little bit different, and it can sometimes be difficult for students to pick out the topic sentence or where the details end or the closing when they're looking at different types of writing. So I make sure to expose them to all three. All right, step number 3. You might be thinking, all right, it's time to get those students to start writing their own paragraphs. But there's another little step I like to take in between, and that is to go ahead and scaffold the paragraph writing experience. Now there's 2 different activities I like to use when doing this, and these really get students thinking about some really great writing choices when they're thinking about their topic sentences or details or a closing sentence that they should add. So that's why I don't like to skip over this step. The first activity I love to use is called Decide What's Missing, and it looks like this. And here students are going to go ahead and read the partial paragraph that's written below, and they have to decide which sentence should fit in the missing spot so that it makes sense. So here's an example. It says, cats don't need to go on long walks like dogs do. They can just stay and play indoors. Cats also use a litter box, so you don't need to carry poop bags outside like you do with a dog. For those reasons, I think a cat is a better pet to own than a dog. Clearly, we know the topic here is something about cats and dogs, but here students need to look at 2 different topic sentences and decide which one they think is a better choice and why. So here they have the options. If I could choose between owning a dog or a cat, I would pick a cat because I think they're easier to take care of. Or cats are way more fun than dogs. Now realistically, I love this type of activity because of the conversations you can have about each of those sentences. I didn't just add in a throwaway one about, parakeets or something. They both are about cats and dogs. They both compare cats and dogs, but which one makes a stronger topic sentence and why? Of course, the answer here is the one about cats being easier to take care of, and we can talk about how the details in the middle and the closing sentence all kind of wrap around that idea. And then I have an illustration box that students can use to go ahead and complete after they have decided which sentence is best. Now for those sheets, I also expose students to opinion, narrative, and informative, but I also made sure that the parts that are missing, like in that example, it was the topic sentence that was missing. Sometimes it is a detail that's missing, and other times it's the closing sentence too. So there's a lot of different ways students can practice this. And just a side note, if you're doing this with 2nd grade students, you could probably go ahead and model and discuss 1 or 2 of these, and then they could do a lot of them independently. With 1st grade, I like to kind of talk through or even do this in small groups, pretty much all of these, unless you have a high group that might be able to do it on their own. All right, the next scaffolding activity I like to do is called Complete and color. It's pretty simple and it looks like this. This partial paragraph is similar to the last idea, except instead of students picking which sentence is better, they have to come up with their own. And for this, I really only have them do it with a topic and with a closing sentence. So here they'll use their knowledge of what is already written in the paragraph to come up with a topic sentence or a concluding sentence that not only makes sense, but is also interesting. You want to kind of refer them back to those beginning different types of sentences anchor chart, so that way they can try to think of a more fun and interesting way to wrap up or start their paragraph. And again, you could totally do this by photocopying some kid-friendly passages that you find either online or from a book that you've read, and you can actually just cover up or white out some of the sentences and have students create their own, or you could write down what the sentence actually is and then come up with an example of a fake or worse sentence and have them choose which one they think is better, and then you can like reveal what the real sentence actually was. All right, step 4 is to actually have students write their own paragraphs. By this point, you have gone ahead and explained what a paragraph is. You've had students identify different parts of a paragraph, and you've even introduced them to different types of closing and topic sentences, and you've scaffolded the experience for them so they don't feel as overwhelmed now when they're going ahead and writing their own full paragraph. When teaching students to start from scratch, I go ahead and use an anchor chart like this one, and I use these 5 steps when teaching how to write a paragraph. First, I have students brainstorm what they know about the topic. Then they go ahead and choose the topic sentence. What is my paragraph going to be mostly about? They will write some details to add more information about the topic. And then I put examples. They might have reasons to support an opinion. They might be sharing facts, or they might be sharing events in a story, depending on the type of writing that they're doing, right? If it's narrative, opinion, or informative. Then they will go ahead and choose a closing sentence to wrap it up. And of course, they have to reread that paragraph to make sure it makes sense. This is when we go ahead and practice, practice, practice. So I have some different types of brainstorming sheets that look like this. Depending on your students and their skill level, you might have 2 details, you might have 3 details to add, or if it's an opinion paragraph, you might have students choose to give a detail and then an example to just further clarify their opinion within their paragraph. After students get their thoughts down on that brainstorming sheet, they can go ahead and write their paragraphs. Now, if you're teaching paragraph writing as a standalone unit and not within a writing workshop unit or a different type of genre that you're doing, you may want to go ahead and give students different types of writing prompts, some informative, some narrative, and some opinion prompts, so they can practice all 3 different types of paragraphs. Within my paragraph writing unit, I actually have 10 different prompts for each. Here's an example of an informative one where I say share some facts about any animal that lives in the jungle. A narrative one might be pretend you had a magic carpet, what would you do? And then for opinion, I like to make it fun and I say, would you rather never eat candy or never watch TV? So with all of those, students would of course first have to brainstorm their thoughts, get them down on paper, and then they could write their own paragraph with a clear topic, details, and closing sentence. So there you have the 4 steps I take when teaching my students how to write their own cohesive paragraphs. Were there any new ideas or activities that you learned in this video that you want to try with your own class? Let me know down in the comments. Remember, all these activities are ones you can do without the actual sheets I showed in this video, but if you are interested in finding those, I will link my paragraph writing unit down in the description below. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up so I know, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.